Welcome to Grieving Insomniacs. I am your host, Christy Haberman. I am glad you're here. Thanks for being a part of our community. A few disclaimers before we get started. I am a licensed therapist. However, this podcast is not to be considered mental health therapy or counseling. It is for entertainment purposes only and is not associated with my counseling practice, Christy Haberman Counseling Services. Thanks for showing up. Welcome to Grieving Insomniacs. This is your host, Christy Haberman. I wasn't sure I was going to record today. It's kind of a difficult day. It's one of those days where part of my brain is very much aware of my grief, and then the other part of my brain is trying to live normally. I don't know how else to explain it. Hopefully those of you that have grief brain will understand what I'm trying to say. So today is Christopher's daughter's 13th birthday. And I don't know if it was denial or if it is something else, but my brain just thought it was her 12th birthday. And maybe that's because I didn't want it to be her 13th birthday, because that meant that it was 13 years since Christopher died, and that anniversary is coming up. And so I've been so preoccupied at work with this new position I have that's considerably more stressful than the previous one. So I go to work and I come home and don't have much time to think about anything else. And that means my grief's getting put aside. I'm not taking care of myself the way I need to. And so this just kind of snuck up on me that today is her birthday. I even had the birthday wrong. Like, there's just all kinds of brain things going on there that I think probably living in denial about. So today I thought I would talk about what it's like to be separated from your grandchildren because of grief or the death of your child. Unfortunately, it happens way more often than you think. And when it first happened to me, I thought it was just me. I thought there was something wrong with just me, that I was damaged in some way. I was broken in some way. And that's why this was happening to me. I very much internalized it. Until, believe it or not, it was the Long Island medium walked up to a lady in a bowling alley. And I can't remember what episode it was. And I don't watch it enough to be able to tell you. But I can tell you the gist of what happened. So the Long Island medium walks up to her and tells her that she lost a child. She said that, yeah, she had lost her son just like me, and that her grandchildren, though, I want to say were 10, 8, and 7. And the mom, the children's mother, just cut ties with her completely. It was just like, okay, your son's dead. You're out of our lives too. Boom. And the lady talked about how much she missed that relationship. I started to wonder about how much the children missed that relationship. Because unlike with Christopher's daughter, I met her once. She was 3 months old when he died. So I met her when actually we were exchanging Christopher's belongings. And if you don't know the story of Christopher's death, there's a couple of episodes. I'll link them in the description box so you can catch up on what happened with him and his friends when he died. But I can put that podcast down there. So I was angry. And they were angry with me because they wanted him buried in Louisiana. So everybody's angry. Ex-girlfriend had moved on. I think she was actually already involved in her current relationship when Christopher died. And so it worked out well for her. They were starting to fight about child support and those kind of things. So it was just a rough time. And I don't want to go into it too much. But there were things that happened between me and the mom that, you know, the relationship just deteriorated. And she wanted all of his stuff. Why'd she want all of his stuff? I have no idea. She wanted to pass it down to Presley, but you know that it wasn't going to last until he was 18 years old. She was 18 years old. I don't know. It was just difficult. And then I tried to look into parental rights in Louisiana. In Louisiana, you had to prove that there was a benefit to the child in order to get grandparent rights. And I had never met her and never had created that bond with her. So there was no way I was going to be able to prove that there would be a benefit to seeing her. Then the other issue too was I lived in South Dakota. She lived in Louisiana. I was just getting started in my career again because we had moved to South Dakota and its wages are tough here. And so I knew that at the most I'd be able to visit her once a year. So when I'm looking at those, and then to pay for the lawyer to do the parental rights. So I started a savings account. I'd have had to hire a lawyer here in order to, and then hire a lawyer in Louisiana to do the grandparent rights. And then my personal decision, which was I found out that my dad adopted me in my 20s, absolutely devastated me. And I'd always felt that separation from everybody else in my family. And there were times that I asked about being adopted, and everyone around me lied. So it's like gaslighting, for those of you that don't know, is that you know the reality, and then they tell you it's not true. So I was 4, almost 5 years old, so I very much knew that I got adopted. But because I was lied to all my life, it was just very devastating in my 20s. Those are the initial reasons why that relationship never took off. And I was angry at her for not being with him when he had cancer and leaving him, because I felt like her depression, or his depression, contributed to him getting cancer and that he was alone. So I was very angry at her. And I didn't know her either, so there was no relationship there between me and her either. And it's not an excuse, I'm just explaining what happened. So if his granddaughter, there's 5 more years before she turns 18 years old. She still doesn't know that her biological dad died. However, when you look at her and you look at me, we look alike, we have these blue eyes. Yeah. You know, there's going to be some point where she's going to start asking questions about that. And her mom's going to have to answer them. So fast forward to, she's 18 years old, shows up on my doorstep, and what am I going to say to her when she introduces herself and says who she is? Now I know her, she doesn't know me, so I will recognize her. What would I say to her? The first thing that I would say to her is that I'm glad to see you. I've been waiting a long time for this. And I've waited years. My son that's still living says, and he's the one that didn't want me to do the parental rights and do all of those other things either, because he said there will be a time that she shows up on our doorstep and we need to be ready for that. And if you cause this kind of conflict with her family, she's going to associate that conflict with you and not associate Christopher with you. And he was right about that. So I backed off of that at his request too. It's like, I want a relationship with her when she's old enough. And I want her to be a part of my family, but this isn't the route to go. And I was kind of angry at him for that for a while. But I did it. I didn't want to lose another child. It's just that simple. Is that I clung hard to Colin. Still do. So she shows up on my doorstep. What am I going to say? So the other thing that I would say to her is welcome and come on in. And I imagine she would ask me a question like, why don't I know you? And I would tell her that I was so devastated when her dad died. I didn't have the mental capacity or the rational mind to problem solve that situation. I often describe myself as a wounded animal during that period of time, and I 100% was. All of my coping skills were stripped away, and I would tell her that. And I would tell her that I wanted to, but neither her nor her mom, neither one of us knew how to navigate that conflict. Distance played a role, I'm sure. But then as the years went by, so I was out of touch with them for a very long time. And she blocked me on Facebook. So I had friends that would show me pictures of Presley, but I was pretty much out of her life. And I started to think about, if I was in her life, what would I tell her? That he was caring, babies and animals really loved him, and he was well liked. And the thing that I could not give her was a family. And I've strongly felt that the family unit, the mother, the father, and the siblings was far more important to her growing and developing, becoming secure in her world, was far more important than trying to get her to remember Christopher. Because it's really hard to stay attached to a dead person. She didn't know him. Not like you would if she was 5 years old, 6 years old, 7, you would keep the memory alive. She was 3 months old. I'm not sure there's a memory to keep alive for her. So by the time we reconnected, she had someone she thought of as her dad. She had a family. And a family where she was accepted. She had cousins. And that's what I would tell her, is that it was far more important that you have a family. Christopher's memory is always going to be there. Whether she's 3 months old, whether she's 18 years old, those memories are still going to be there. And I am still going to be able to share with her the baby clothes that I saved, the blankets that he made for her with her name on it, the pictures. I can share all of that with her. I've saved his Christmas decorations. All of that is hers. He's got savings bonds that are hers. All of that is hers. I'm saving it for her. But all of those things will still be there. But a safe and secure childhood is far more valuable than those things. And I know there's a lot of people listening to my podcast that would totally 100% disagree with me, say that I should have fought for seeing her, fought for her coming to see us, and at the same time I needed to respect my other son too. And he said, there'll be time, Mom, there'll be time. And the closer we get to 18, the more I realize that he is right. And the guy that her mom married was a good guy. He was instrumental in allowing me to meet my granddaughter, visiting with them and meeting the whole family. And I've done what I could to make sure I include all of her siblings too, because that's her family. Her family matters. Her family is important. So if she showed up on the doorstep with one of her brothers as support, I would welcome him in too, because they met me too. They just know that I am a family friend from South Dakota. Now, is she going to feel betrayed? She probably will be. I know I did when I found out I was adopted and nobody told me, and everybody around me, I was devastated. God, I was devastated when that happened to me. And I think to myself, if she never finds out that biologically she had a different father, I think I'd be okay with it. Because I want her to live this good and happy life. And I didn't want her to be devastated like I was when I found out my dad wasn't my biological dad. It shakes up your identity. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know where I fit. I already felt like I didn't fit in with my family. Now I felt like I really didn't fit in because I thought I'm more like my dad than my mom. Took a lot of pride in that, and then it all fell apart. And the people that told me, that went out of their way to tell me because they thought it wasn't right, didn't think of me when they made those choices and changed my life so drastically. They didn't think of me. Fortunately for my granddaughter, she has me, and I think of her. And I think, why would you cause that kind of pain for someone? So if I always know her as a friend in the family, I'm okay with that too. Because I probably won't, because I think she'd recognize Christopher, but I can still talk about my sons. See, that's the weird thing about biology, DNA. There's a spiritual component to that. When my aunt, who was the one that broke my little secret open to me about my biological father, showed me a picture of him, and I knew instantly that he was my biological father. I'm afraid that would happen with my granddaughter. And then she'll be devastated. And I just don't want that for her. And I would tell her all of these things. I didn't want that for you. What Christopher would have wanted for her, he would have wanted her to have a good life. He would have wanted her to have goals, have people that loved her. She wants to be a doctor, ironically. If she goes into cancer treatment, I will be so shocked because there's some karma in that, but I just have this feeling that that's where it will go. But we'll see. It's not a coincidence that they were both in the medical field. Christopher would have preferred to be alive and be a part of her life. I know that. And he had no control over dying. And I know that he watches over her to this day in the extent that they can from the other side. And that he's a part of her life and watches out for her, and a guardian angel almost. I know he does that for her. But I think that Christopher would want her to be loved. And that's what I would tell her. So your biological dad would have wanted you to be loved, to be taken care of emotionally, be taken care of physically for sure, taken care of spiritually. My granddaughter has a great life. I see from a distance. She's active in sports. She's a cheerleader, honor society, good student. She has things going for her that I feel like if she knew, she may not have had. People that come from secure environments. My husband is one. He comes from a very secure environment where he never questioned whether his parents loved him. He had food, shelter, clothing. They were really poor by the time he came around, but he never went hungry. He didn't know those kind of feelings. I knew those kind of feelings growing up. Christopher, because of mistakes that I made, questioned that also because I had him so young and out of wedlock. So he knew what that felt like. I know for a fact he would not have wanted that for his daughter. In fact, he talked about it. He talked about it a lot when she was first born and the baby mama broke up with him because he was just devastated because everybody thinks that dads are the deadbeats because the dads leave. Well, in his case, he had no choice. She made him leave. He didn't get to be there as part of the pregnancy. It's like she used him to get pregnant, and then she was like, okay, I'm going to be a single parent now, and off she went. And that didn't last for very long, but I know that he would prefer that she be happy. And DNA is a very interesting thing. Because I feel like that she would know and feel him around. And I just have to trust in that. I just have to trust that that's the best thing going for her. And I would tell her all of these things. And tell her that I believe that her mom did the thing that she thought was best for her daughter, which was to not tell her. And maybe there was a bit of selfishness in there because she thought that it would be easier for her not to have to answer all those questions. And maybe it was. But it always comes back to bite you. Always. I just hope that when she does show up on my doorstep, that the answers that I can give her are going to be answers that satisfy her. And then I would take out all the memories, all the skateboarding videos, his skateboard. I saved his skateboard for her. I would give her all of those things and let her know that she was dearly loved. And that I would want to continue a relationship with her. That we consider her a part of the family. When people ask me how many grandkids I have, I say 3. I say one lives in Louisiana. I don't go into details that I never see her unless they ask me directly. Because it's no one's business but my own about that relationship. And I did get to see her once, so I do get to see her. And the family shares pictures with me. But the mom's request was, when I saw her, that I not tell her about Christopher, and I honored that request. It is not mine to tell anymore. It's her mom's. My best friend tells me that she listens to the Family Secrets podcast and says that it always comes out. Family secrets always come out. And it's like, well, my granddaughter's not a secret in my family. Everybody knows I have a granddaughter in Louisiana. And so when she shows up on my doorstep, I'll welcome her with open arms. So that's the story of my granddaughter. For those of you out there that might be in the same position that I am, I'm so sorry. It's a hard road that we have to haul. But you can never go wrong if you try to do the right thing for the other person. And that's where I am at with my granddaughter. I have to do right by her. And I've done right to the best of my abilities. So today, on her birthday, I'm sending up silent prayers for her, that she has a joyous and happy birthday, that she achieves all of her dreams. And I know that today of all days is a day that her dad will be watching over her. Maybe she'll dream about him tonight. And for now, that has to be enough. So thank you for listening to Grieving Insomniacs. This is Christy Haberman. Thanks for listening.